Have you ever noticed how, once you make up your mind to leave home and seek your fortunes elsewhere, the opportunity that you've been waiting for all along suddenly appears? It could be a woman, it could be a man, it could be a job, but for years on end, nothing seemed to work until you finally decided to leave it all behind. And just then, does this mean you should cancel your journey? What if this is but a test, and a hero's test at that? Well, following where we left off in our previous episode, Jason and the Argonauts have just stumbled on this dilemma. Their aim was to sail as far as the edge of their known world to a place called Colchis, where a great treasure, the golden Fleece, was lying in the keep of a dragon. But soon after they departed, the heroes found themselves in the warm embraces of the woman of Lemnos, who, in a fit of jealous rage, had killed their treacherous husbands, only to discover loneliness. Until, that is, Jason came sailing past their island together with his brave companions, charming the island queen and settling there. And for Joseph Campbell, our guide on this hero's journey, this point of indecision is one of the most crucial, because while the worst is yet to come, he observes how everyday man is not only content, but proud to keep himself in the bounds of his culture. In the archetypal pattern that Campbell discovered in all mythologies, this is the point of the first threshold, the point between two worlds, the known and the unknown, where the real adventure takes place. It's the point that Sam the Hobbit discovered quite early and during the first part of The Lord of the Rings, when only a few moments after he began his journey, and staring at the ground, he tells Frodo that if I take one more step, I'll be the furthest away from home I've ever been. But heroes are not your everyday man. And luckily for us, Jason was not one to be seduced by comfort. Like the bees, the poet says, who leave their hives inside the rocks and fly buzzing on lush meadows, sucking the juices of one flower here and then another there. So did the woman of Lemnos walk the heroes to the shore, saying their last farewells. Jason kissed the queen goodbye and jumped on board of his ship, the mighty Argo, crafted with the guidance of goddess Athena, goddess of crafts, sailing away from the sea-soaked rock of Lemnos. The Argonauts rowed across the Aegean till they crossed the Dardanelles, and from there into the Sea of Marmara. Throughout his work, Campbell made it abundantly clear that heroes don't just overcome difficult odds, they overcome impossible ones. And the only way to do so is to get help. This help is not given to just about anyone, however, but only comes after the hero passes the first threshold, the one of homely comforts. For the few that pass through, this stage is followed by that of the magical helper, a wise old man or woman that will appear in the form of a sage, a hermit, a witch, or, as we hear from the poets of Islam, a genie. What these figures represent, Campbell explains, is the benign, protecting power of destiny, a destiny that in the hero's journey only manifests after the hero has made the heroic decision to leave everything behind. The wise helper will advise the hero on their journey, complementing their courage and strength with insight and wisdom. In the story of the Argonauts, this man was Phineas, an old seer punished by Zeus for misusing his power of prophecy by revealing everything to everyone. And for this, the king of the gods sent him the Harpies, terrible creatures, half women and half birds, who appear suddenly like the storm and steal the food from Phineas' table, leaving behind them a terrible stench. Old, dirty and poor, starving and in despair, Phineas passed his days waiting for deliverance. Luckily for him, the Argonauts were looking for his help, and crossing the Dardanelles, the straits separating Greece from Asia, they sailed to his lands. With whatever food he had left, Phineas set up a table and invited his new guests. But as soon as he stretched to touch it, the harpies came flying out of nowhere, tearing the meat with their dirty claws and beaks, flying off, leaving behind them a terrible stench. The two sons of Boreas, the north wind, took off in hot pursuit, flying over the sea just like their father had taught them. Using their great speed, they soon caught up with the harpies and drew their swords ready to strike. But at that moment, Zeus intervened to save his monsters that he had sent himself, his faithful bitches, as the poet says, promising that he would harm the old seer Phineas no longer. With that promise, and so as not to anger the father of the gods, the sons of the north wind withdrew, and the harpies flew south towards Crete, where they hid inside of a cave, where some believe they still reside. Phineas was saved, and grateful for his deliverance, used his gift of prophecy to foretell the perils that still lied ahead. Careful, however, not to overuse his powers, hiding some of the things that he saw. But even counting what the prophet revealed, the prospects for the Argonauts were not looking as good. Lying ahead, they had to pass through the narrow straits of the thrashing rocks that smashed against each other, rocks that no sailor had ever passed through before. Then they would sail near the uncharted lands of the Halives, somber men who dig the rocks for iron. Then through the land of the Amazons, the wild maidens, daughter of Ares, the war god, and finally to Colchis, where the savage king Aeetes holds the golden fleece, and where the real danger begins. Luckily for the sailors, the prophet had some advice to give, but not all the advice, remember, as not to anger Zeus again. He tells them to capture a white dove, and then, when they near the thrashing rocks, to release it. If the bird passes through, then, by rowing at exactly the bird's speed, they should, in theory, also pass through the rocks. Modern historians have assumed these rocks to be the Straits of the Bosporus, a difficult passage to this day. For Campbell, however, symbols like this one are murdered when interpreted as mere geography, as what they truly signify are clues to the spiritual potential of human life, a potential that mostly lies fragmented, as most of us live in a world of duality, where existence is split in pairs of opposites, life versus death, good versus evil, desire versus duty. But during the heights of their ecstasies, mystics and psychonauts alike report visions that move them beyond duality, where these pairs of opposites meet and form a unified whole. And according to Campbell, within us lies the center that unites our being with that of the larger world. And to find it, we must go beyond the thrashing rocks of duality. And that's exactly what the heroes do, go beyond. And so, after offering the proper tributes to the gods, Jason and his Argonauts depart once more towards the stage that Campbell calls challenges and temptations. Nearing the straits, their rowing slows to a stop and their hearts begin to beat as the heroes watch the two giant rocks move towards each other, hitting the wild sea foaming around them. The dove is released and flies darting through the narrow passage. The rocks begin to close around it. The bird flies quicker, sensing its impending doom, and it disappears behind the rocks that crash against each other with a great clasp of thunder. But as they slowly open up again, the dove is seen flying on the other side. It has made it. Only a few feathers from its tail were clipped at the last moment. The sailors row at top speed, trying to mimic the bird's wings. At the last moment, a tide comes from the opening on the other side, pushing them backwards. They row even faster as the rocks come closing in. And just like the bird, the ship's stern is caught, broken wood scattering on the foam. But the ship has made it. Sailing across the Bosporus, the Argonauts threw their anchors at the mouth of a great river flowing from the islands of Amazonia, the island of the warlike maidens, daughter of Ares, who live scattered in 3 tribes. These female warriors are notorious man-haters, but Phineas, the prophet, had foreseen that if the sailors stay for only a single night, nothing will harm them. And so they do exactly that. The next day, they set their sail toward the east once more, and a few days later, they find themselves at their destination, Olchis, where the most dangerous part of their adventure begins. Shortly, in our next episode.